Hello, welcome to the tutorial video for the Lacy round ripple blanket. And I am Mama from Mama's Stitchery Projects, and I will have the web address for the pattern in the description of the video. And in the pattern it will have all the instructions, including how much yarn you will need and what sizes of the blanket you can make. And the nice thing about this blanket, it's made in the round, and so you can actually just keep making it and it just gets bigger around and around and around. And you can really make it as big as you want. I've seen some of these made just absolutely huge, for a queen size bed even. So, and the sample that I'm making is with worsted weight yarn, but you can make this with thread, like with crochet thread, to make it like a doily or a tablecloth is perfectly acceptable. And it can be made any size. So sometimes it's a little hard to get started. There's some confusion in it, and so I'm hoping that the tutorial video will kind of clear up any confusion. And I may have to do the video in pieces, since I'm going to basically have to just make the blanket for you to demonstrate it. So to start out, we're going to start with 4 chains, and then we're going to join them. And you just join them by slip stitching into the first chain to form a ring. And then we are going to make we're going to crochet 3, chain 3, and that counts as a double crochet. Then we're going to make double crochets into this loop. We're going to make 11 of them, and that's going to, with counting that turning chain, that will be like, or that beginning chain, that will be like there were 12. So I'm going to count that as 1, 2, 3, so I've got 5, so I've made 4 actual double crochets. Each of these going into that first loop. So I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then the beginning chain 3 makes 12, counts as 12. Then I will do a slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 that counted as my first stitch. So that seals up our ring, and that's our beginning ring of the blanket. For the next row, I'm going to chain 3, actually I'm going to chain 4. Because the next row is going to have double crochets with chains in between. So I need to start with the equivalent of a double crochet plus 1 chain. Then I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to just be doing my work in the back loops as I go along. This blanket could be done in both loops. It's kind of a personal preference sort of thing, but I like to, and when we get into doing the lace parts of course are going to be going into chain spaces, so they won't have the effect of the front loop back loop differential. But I kind of like having this ridge right here. I think it gives a certain look to the parts of the blanket that have double crochets worked into specific stitches. And when we get into doing the ripple part of the blanket, the spokes of the wheel, if we should say so, and those will have those ridges like that, and I think that is a nice look. So as I go along, I'm doing a chain and then a double crochet in between each. Whoops, I'm back to the beginning. So that should be, counting that chain 4 as 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oops, I did an extra one. Because I want 12 of these going around. So they're double crochets with chains in between. And then I'm going to join, not at the top of the 4, but at 3. There were 3 chains and then a 4th chain that counted as a chain. So now I've got another row. Now I want to, for the next, this was round 2. And then for round 3, I want to chain 1 and do a single crochet in this chain space. All right. And then I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do a single crochet in the next one. And I'm going to do this all the way around. I'm going to chain 3, single crochet in the next one, chain 3, single crochet in the next one, all the way around. And now that I'm back to the beginning, I'm going to chain 3 and I'm going to join in the top of this single crochet. So put my needle through it and do a slip stitch. So now I have 12 of these little chain 3 loops. Then for round 4, I'm going to slip stitch into this chain 3 space. So slip stitch there, and then chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and that counts as a double crochet and a chain. I'm going to do a double crochet in the same space, chain, and another double crochet in that same space. So that counts, if I count this where we chained as a double crochet and a chain, so it's like having 3 double crochets with a chain in between each. And we're going to do this in each of these chain spaces. So in the next one I'll do a double crochet, chain, double crochet, chain, double crochet, and just keep working like that in each of these spaces. Now, this is the last one of this round. So it brings us back to our beginning one. And remember, it was 4 chains, but only 3 of these are the double crochet. So I'm going to slip stitch into that 3rd chain, since it counted as the double crochet, and then that is round 4. And round 4 consists of 12 of these shells that are the double crochets separated, 3 of the double crochets separated by chains, these 3 DC shells. There are 12 of those. Now for the next row, again we are going to chain 1 and do a single crochet into that chain 1 space, And we're going to just do that all the way around. So we're going to end up with, this time we're going to have 24 of the chain 3 loops. So the only difference in this row is that here we're actually skipping 2 double crochets because there's a double crochet of this shell and the double crochet of this shell, but over it will just be 1 of these chain 3 loops. But just if you'll just make 3 chains and do a single crochet in each space of each chain 1 space, then you'll be alright, and you should end up with 24 of those loops. So we're back around to the beginning, and so I'm back to that single crochet that I did at the beginning. I'm going to slip stitch into it. So now I have 24 of those chain 3 loops going around, and that is round 5 complete. So the beginning of round 6, I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 space, and chain 4, which counts as a double crochet and a chain. And then I'm going to do a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, so that completes a 3DC shell. Then in the next one, which will be a little different from the round 4 that we did, in round 6, I'm going to do a double crochet in the next one and chain 2 and a double crochet. So we're going to alternate. And so in the first chain 3 space we did a 3DC shell. Then in the next one we're doing a V-stitch which has 2 chains in it. And then we're going to go shell, V-stitch around so that they alternate, and you'll have 12 of each at the end of this. So this next stitch will be a shell. So we'll do DC, chain, DC, chain in that space. Then the next space is a V-stitch. So we're going to DC, chain, chain, DC. And we're going to keep alternating between those 2 all the way around. All right, we're rounding around to the end of this round. So we're ending with a V-stitch in the last chain 3 space, and we're going to join in the 3rd chain, because that's basically the top of our, what we're making a DC out of that chain, and then that concludes the end of round 6. So we have 12 of the 3 DC shells with these V-stitches in between. So for round 7, we're going to chain 1 and do a single crochet into this stitch. And then we're going to chain 3 and then single crochet into the next chain 1 space. So that's the 2 chains of that shell. We've made this chain, the chain 3 in between. Now we're going to make things a little different than we've done in prior rows. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to do another V-stitch into this V-stitch. So that means we're going to do a DC, 2 chains and a DC into that chain 2 space. Then we're going to chain 1 and we're going to single crochet into the chain 1 space of this shell. Then we're going to chain 3 and then single crochet in the space of the shell again. So we have a chain 3 loop over the center of each shell of the DC shells. Then we're going to chain 1 and do the V-stitch into the last V-stitch. So we're going to alternate like that all the way across, where the V-stitch will be made into each V-stitch and then chains between those, and then doing a doing a 3 chain loop over the top of each of the 3 DC shells. And what we're doing is we're shaping up, it's beginning to take the pattern that it's going to take for the rest of the blanket. The V-stitches are the very beginnings of the spines, shall we say, or the spokes of the wheel as we go around. And then the loops and these 3 DC shells are the beginnings of, they're beginning to take the shape of the shells and the lacy portion that are going to be between the spokes of the wheel as we get into the blanket. So just continue like this around, alternating between doing V-stitches and the V-stitches, and then doing single crochets on either side of the V-stitches, and then going a single crochet in one side of the shell and 3 chains, and then a single crochet in the other. So now we're back around to the beginning, and I just did the last V-stitch and chain 1, and I'm back to the beginning. That was the first chain 3 loop that I made. So in that single crochet before it, I'm going to slip stitch to complete that round. So again, I have chain 3 loops divided by these V-stitches, and there's chains, one chain on either side of each V-stitch. So that completes that round. You can kind of see how it's shaping up. So then for the next round, we're ready for, that was round, let's see, round 7. And for round 8, I'm going to slip stitch into this chain 3 space. And I'm going to chain 4. And this time we're going to double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. This is the shell that we're going to be doing for the whole rest of the blanket. It consists of, if we count this first chain as a double crochet and a chain, then it's 5 double crochets separated by chains. That is our standard shell. The 5 DC shell is what we're going to be doing for the rest of the blanket. Then, without making any chains or anything, we're going to do a double crochet and chain 2 and double crochet in this V-stitch. So basically another V-stitch into this V-stitch. The V-stitches we're going to start adding to those in later rows to where they start being bigger and growing. These shells, the 5 DC shells, this is as big as they're going to get. This will stay continuous through the rest of the blanket, and it's going to cause the little lacy panel that runs between the spokes of the wheel, whoops, not chain, through the whole rest of the blanket. So I've done my V-stitch, and without chaining or anything, I'm just going to do a 5 double crochet shell into this chain 3 loop. So I'm going to double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So I have 5 double crochets separated by chain stitches, all made into that chain 3 loop. Then I'm going to make a V-stitch into this next V-stitch. And I'm going to make another shell. So I'm going to continue like this all the way around, alternating between making V-stitches in the V-stitches and making these 5 DC shells into each of the chain 3 spaces.